They said your name in a room you were never invited into. They formed opinions without hearing your voice. They analyzed your silence. They interpreted your intentions. And maybe when you found out, it hurt more than you expected. Because betrayal does not always come as confrontation. Sometimes it comes as conversation. But pause for a moment. While they were speaking, Allah was listening. Not one word escaped him. Not the tone, not the intention behind the tone, not the hidden jealousy, not the subtle exaggeration. You think the real story is what they said about you, but the real story is what Allah is doing through it. What if the conversation you were excluded from was actually part of your elevation? What if their words were not meant to break you, but to expose hearts, refine your ego, and raise your spiritual rank? Today we uncover the deeper reality behind this painful experience through the wisdom of Ibn Arabi, and you will realize something powerful. They talked, but Allah heard everything, and that changes the entire story. One, Allah uses people's lips' tongues to reveal your rank. There is a moment that shakes the heart more than open confrontation. It is the moment you realize your name was spoken in a place you were not present. Something inside you tightens. You begin to imagine the tone, the expressions, the hidden meanings. Your mind creates scenes. Your ego feels exposed. But according to the spiritual understanding of Ibn Arabi, this moment is not random humiliation. It is revelation. He teaches that nothing in creation moves independently from divine will. Not a leaf falls, not a word is uttered, not a whisper passes between two people, except that it unfolds within Allah's knowledge and permission. This includes the conversations about you, especially the conversations about you. When someone speaks your name in your absence, you assume they are acting from their own choice alone. But Ibn Arabi would push you to look deeper. He would ask, who allowed your name to enter that room? Who allowed their tongue to form those words? Who allowed that gathering to happen at that exact moment? It was not chaos, it was decree. And decree is never empty of meaning. Sometimes Allah allows people to speak about you because your spiritual rank is being tested and revealed at the same time. Praise and criticism are both instruments. Both are tools. Both are mirrors. If they praised you, your ego was tested. Would you secretly enjoy it? Would you begin to see yourself as superior? Would you allow admiration to enter your heart and inflate it? Many people fail in praise before they ever fail in hardship. Praise can be more dangerous than criticism because it feeds the self quietly. If they criticized you, your patience was tested. Would you defend yourself aggressively? Would resentment grow in your chest? Would you replay their words over and over until anger becomes identity? Or would you pause and surrender the situation to Allah? Ibn Arabi reminds us that spiritual rank is not measured by how people speak about you. It is measured by how your heart responds when they do. This is the hidden elevation. You think the event is about them. It is about you. You think the conversation is about reputation. It is about refinement. You think the situation is social. It is spiritual. The believer who understands this does not rush to extinguish every fire. Sometimes the fire was sent to purify. Gold is not placed in cool water to become pure. It is placed in heat. Your name entering uncomfortable conversations is part of that heat. It burns illusions. It burns ego. It burns the need for constant approval. And when approval burns away, something greater replaces it: reliance. There is a powerful reality in Ibn Arabi's thought. Your true worth is known in the unseen before it is recognized in the seen. Sometimes Allah allows people to speak about you because your unseen station is rising, even if your visible image seems shaken. You may feel lowered, but you may be elevated. The world measures rank by applause. Allah measures rank by patience. The world measures status by reputation. So when your name is mentioned and you feel the sting of it, Remember this: Allah may be showing you where you truly stand, not in their eyes, in His sight. And if you remain composed, if you guard your tongue from retaliation, if you refuse to poison your heart with hatred, then you have just passed a test that many never even recognize. Your rank rises silently. The tragedy is not that people talk about you. The tragedy would be if their words succeed in pulling you down spiritually. Ibn Arabi's wisdom teaches that every external disturbance is an invitation to internal mastery. You cannot control what is said, but you can control what settles inside your heart. And when you realize that Allah allowed your name to circulate without your control, you begin to understand something profound. Your honor was never in your hands to begin with. It was always in His. This realization changes everything. Instead of asking, "Why are they talking about me?" you begin asking, "What is Allah teaching me through this?" That shift alone is elevation. 2. Your absence is a test of their character, not yours. There is something deeply uncomfortable about not being in the room where your name is being discussed. It feels like vulnerability. It feels like exposure. It feels like you have lost control of your narrative. But from the spiritual lens of Ibn Arabi, your absence is not your weakness, it is their examination. When someone speaks about you while you are not present, Allah is not primarily exposing you, He is exposing them. In that moment, their heart is being weighed, their intention is being measured, their sincerity is being tested. Will they speak with justice? Will they protect your honor? Will they clarify misunderstandings? Or will they exaggerate, distort, and fuel emotion? Your silence becomes the scale upon which their character is placed. Ibn Arabi teaches that every interaction reveals an inner reality. Words are not just sounds, they are manifestations of what lives in the heart. If envy lives there, envy will surface. If love lives there, love will surface. If insecurity lives there, insecurity will color the speech. You are not present to defend yourself, yet Allah is present to observe them, and that changes the entire situation. Often when we discover that someone spoke about us, we feel personally attacked. We assume their words define our value, but spiritually their words define their state. A pure heart cannot easily slander. A disciplined tongue cannot casually humiliate. A believer conscious of Allah does not play with someone else's honor. So when you hear that something was said about you, resist the immediate instinct to see yourself as the center of the story. The real story may be unfolding in their record, not yours. Ibn Arabi reminds us that creation is a mirror. People reflect what is inside them. If they project negativity onto you, it may not be because you are negative. It may be because that is what they are carrying within themselves. This does not mean you are perfect. It does not mean you are beyond error, but it means you must not automatically internalize every word spoken about you as truth. Some words are reflections of the speaker, not the subject. And here is the deeper layer. Allah sometimes removes you from a room so He can reveal the unseen loyalties within it. When you are present, people perform. They soften their tone. They hide their resentment. They mask their jealousy. But when you are absent, masks fall, and what remains is authenticity. You might feel hurt knowing what was said. But what if Allah allowed you to know so you could see clearly? What if the conversation you were excluded from was actually a mercy? If someone defended you while you were absent, that is loyalty revealed. If someone twisted your story while you were absent, that is character revealed. Both are gifts of clarity. Ibn Arabi often emphasized that the world is a theater of divine disclosure. Allah discloses realities through events. When people speak about you in your absence, He is disclosing something, maybe about them, maybe about your circle, maybe about who deserves proximity to you. Instead of reacting with rage, step back and observe who protected your name. who remained silent, who fueled the fire. You are learning who stands with justice and who stands with ego. And here is the powerful truth. Your absence does not diminish you. It dignifies you, because you were not there to manipulate perception. You were not there to defend your pride. You were simply entrusted to Allah. The believer understands this. Reputation is not sustained by constant defense. It is sustained by consistent integrity. Let them speak. If they are truthful, you have nothing to fear. If they are unjust, Allah is sufficient as witness. Your focus is not to chase every rumor. Your focus is to purify your own heart, because while they are being tested in speech, you are being tested in reaction. And sometimes, the most powerful response is composure. Your absence was not your humiliation. It was their unveiling. 3. Hidden conversations are part of divine protection. There are moments when you discover that something was said about you, and it feels like a betrayal. The shock is not only in the words themselves, but in the secrecy. You were not present. You were not consulted. Decisions may have been made. Judgments may have been formed, and you were outside of it all. But through the lens of Ibn Arabi, hidden conversations are not always harm. Sometimes they are protection in disguise. We assume that transparency is always mercy, and secrecy is always betrayal. Yet Allah operates in ways that do not always align with our assumptions. There are things He hides from you because knowing them too early would damage you. There are conversations He allows without your presence, because your presence would have entangled you deeper in something not meant for you. You may think you were excluded, but perhaps you were spared. Ibn Arabi speaks often about the unseen wisdom behind apparent loss. What looks like rejection may be redirection. What feels like humiliation may be insulation. What seems like distance may be divine filtering. When someone speaks about you privately, and that conversation shifts their behavior toward you, pay attention, not with paranoia, with awareness. If their speech led them to withdraw from you, maybe Allah was quietly removing them from your path. If their words created misunderstanding that distanced you from a gathering, perhaps that gathering carried a spiritual harm you could not see. We often ask, why did Allah allow them to speak about me like that? But a deeper question is, what was Allah protecting me from through that speech? Sometimes being misunderstood limits your access to environments that would have corrupted you. Sometimes being criticized prevents you from being overexposed. Sometimes losing favor in people's eyes preserves your sincerity with Allah. Protection does not always look like applause. Ibn Arabi teaches that divine mercy can be concealed inside events that disturb you. Allah does not only protect you by blocking harm, He sometimes protects you by allowing minor pain that prevents greater damage. Think carefully. If everyone spoke perfectly about you, if every room praised you, if every door remained open, would your heart remain safe? Would your ego remain balanced? Would your dependence remain on Allah? Sometimes Allah allows certain narratives about you to circulate, so you are not consumed by reputation, because reputation can become an idol, and Allah removes idols from the hearts of those He loves. When people speak about you, and that speech changes your relationship with them, something is being reorganized in your life. Circles shift, access narrows, distance forms, and in that rearrangement, there may be mercy. Not every broken connection is a tragedy. Some are filtration. Ibn Arabi's understanding of destiny reminds us that events are layered. On the surface you see gossip. Beneath it, there is selection. On the surface you see damage. Beneath it, there is design. Perhaps Allah did not want you dependent on their approval. Perhaps He wanted you closer to Him. Perhaps He wanted your reliance purified. And sometimes the quickest way to purify reliance is to remove false security. When hidden conversations affect your life, resist the urge to interpret everything as hostility. Instead, consider that Allah may be shielding you from attachments that would have weakened you later. You are not always losing when people talk about you. You may be being repositioned, and divine repositioning is never random. There are doors that close because someone spoke, but there are also disasters that were prevented because that door closed. Trust the closure. Trust the rearrangement. Trust that Allah sees what you cannot see. The conversation you were not invited to may have been the shield you did not know you needed. 4. Your reaction determines your spiritual station. The moment you discover that someone spoke about you is not the real test. The real test begins after that discovery. Anyone can feel hurt. Anyone can feel anger. Anyone can feel the surge of injustice rising in the chest. That is human. But according to the spiritual insight of Ibn Arabi, the event itself does not define your rank. Your reaction does. This is where the battlefield truly is. When you hear what was said, your ego immediately awakens. It demands defense. It demands correction. It demands retaliation. It wants to restore balance by force. It whispers, "You cannot let this slide." But Ibn Arabi teaches that the nafs, the lower self, is subtle and persuasive. It often disguises pride as justice. It convinces you that defending your honor is always necessary, when sometimes silence is the greater strength. The question is not whether what they said was fair. The question is what their words awaken inside you. Do they awaken revenge? Or do they awaken reflection? The spiritually immature reacts quickly. The spiritually anchored pauses. That pause is powerful. In that pause, you remember that Allah heard everything. In that pause, you recognize that no human explanation can increase what Allah has decreed for you, and no human insult can decrease it. In that pause, you separate your worth from their words. Ibn Arabi emphasizes that true mastery is not controlling others, it is controlling oneself. When someone speaks about you, they are tested in speech. When you respond, you are tested in restraint. Restraint is not weakness, it is discipline. There is a deep difference between silence that comes from fear and silence that comes from strength. Fearful silence is suppression. Strong silence is surrender to divine justice. The one who reacts impulsively is still chained to people's opinions. The one who responds with composure has already shifted his reliance to Allah. And here is the subtle reality: your reaction writes your spiritual trajectory. If you allow bitterness to settle in your heart, that bitterness becomes heavier than the original words spoken about you. If you allow resentment to define your thoughts, you carry a burden they may have already forgotten. But if you choose dignity, something changes inside you. You begin to realize that not every accusation requires explanation. Not every rumor requires correction. Sometimes your character over time will speak louder than your defense in the moment. Ibn Arabi teaches that events in this world are mirrors meant to polish the heart. When someone speaks about you unfairly, it is an opportunity to see what still clings to your ego. Why does it hurt so deeply? Is it because your image was shaken? Is it because control was lost? Is it because you crave being understood? These questions are uncomfortable, but they lead to purification. The one who is free from the need to be constantly validated is difficult to shake. When your sense of worth is anchored in Allah, human commentary becomes lighter. It may still hurt, but it does not define you. And this is the elevation. Your spiritual station rises not when people stop talking about you, but when their speech no longer destabilizes your heart. Imagine two people hearing the same criticism. One spirals into anger, plotting response after response. The other reflects, makes dua, and continues walking his path without disruption. The external event was identical. The internal response created two entirely different spiritual outcomes. This is why Ibn Arabi reminds us that the real transformation is inward. The outer world will always fluctuate. tongues will move, opinions will shift. But if your heart becomes steady, you are no longer controlled by the noise. So when you discover what was said, resist immediate reaction. Sit with it. Observe your heart. Ask yourself, am I seeking justice or am I feeding pride? Then hand it to Allah. Because when you surrender the situation to Him, you are declaring something powerful. My honor is not preserved by my arguments. It is preserved by my Lord. And that declaration is what truly elevates your station. 5. Allah records every word, and so should you guard every intention. When someone speaks about you, you think the story ends with their voice, but it does not. According to the spiritual insight of Ibn Arabi, every word uttered in this world leaves an imprint in the unseen. Nothing dissolves into emptiness. Nothing disappears without record. The tongue moves for seconds. The consequences may last for eternity. This is the part most people forget. When they speak about you, they may think it is casual conversation. They may think it is harmless commentary. But in the divine scale, every syllable is weighed. Every intention behind the syllable is weighed even more. And here is where the lesson becomes deeper. It is not only their words that are recorded. Your internal reaction is recorded too. You may remain silent outwardly while your heart burns inwardly. You may avoid responding publicly, but internally rehearse revenge. You may appear calm but carry silent resentment. The unseen realm is not fooled by appearances. Ibn Arabi emphasizes that reality is not defined only by external action, but by inner state. Two people may experience the same insult. One turns it into a doorway of forgiveness. The other turns it into a seed of hatred. Externally they look identical. Internally they are worlds apart. When Allah allows someone to speak about you, He is not only writing their record, He is observing yours. Did you forgive? Did you assume their ignorance instead of their malice? Did you make dua for them instead of cursing them in your thoughts? Did you protect your own tongue from repeating what you heard? It is easy to condemn the one who spoke. It is harder to monitor what rises inside you afterward. There is a subtle spiritual danger here. Sometimes the victim of gossip becomes the carrier of gossip. You discover what was said, and you repeat it to 10 others in anger. You defend yourself, but in doing so, you spread the very negativity you were hurt by. Now the circle expands. Now more words are written. Ibn Arabi teaches that the wise soul breaks cycles instead of expanding them. When negativity reaches you, you have two options: amplify it or absorb it and transform it. Absorption does not mean weakness, it means maturity. When you restrain your tongue after hearing what was said about you, you are doing something powerful. You are refusing to let the unseen record multiply unnecessarily. You are stepping out of reaction and into accountability. Remember this: the angels do not only write what others say about you, they write what you say about them in return. And sometimes Allah allows people to speak about you because He wants to open a door of forgiveness for you. If you forgive when you had the right to retaliate, that forgiveness is not small. It is elevation. It is purification. It is spiritual weight on your side of the scale. There is also another reality. If what they said about you was true, even partially, then their speech becomes a mirror, not to shame you, but to refine you. Instead of obsessing over their injustice, you examine yourself honestly. Is there something I need to correct? Is there something I need to purify? In this way, even criticism becomes growth. But if what they said was false, then your patience becomes light. False accusations that are endured with dignity are never wasted in the sight of Allah. The believer lives with awareness that nothing is lost. Not a whisper of injustice, not a silent tear, not a restrained response. All of it is preserved. So when someone speaks about you, shift your focus from their record to yours. They have their account. You have yours. guard it carefully. Because in the end, the conversation that matters most is not the one they had about you. It is the one your soul will have with Allah, when every word, theirs and yours, is brought forward without distortion. 6. Being talked about means you carry weight. There is a truth most people do not admit. Not everyone becomes the subject of conversation. Names that carry no impact rarely travel. Names that stir nothing rarely circulate. If your name is being mentioned in rooms you did not enter, it means your presence carries influence, whether you intended it or not. From the perspective of Ibn Arabi, influence is not random. Allah places certain souls in positions where their existence affects others. Sometimes that effect inspires, sometimes it unsettles, sometimes it exposes insecurity, but it always reveals something. When people talk about you, it is often because your presence triggered something inside them. It may have triggered admiration, it may have triggered comparison, it may have triggered envy, it may have triggered discomfort. You cannot control what you awaken in others. Ibn Arabi explains that every human being is a mirror reflecting divine attributes in unique proportions. Some reflect patience strongly, some reflect intelligence, some reflect discipline, some reflect confidence. When a person carries a strong reflection of a certain quality, it affects those around them, and effect always produces reaction. If someone feels small next to your strength, they may attempt to reduce you through speech. If someone feels threatened by your growth, they may try to control the narrative. If someone admires you but cannot admit it, their admiration may twist into criticism. None of this excuses wrongdoing, but it explains why visibility attracts scrutiny. The higher something rises, the more visible it becomes, and the more visible it becomes, the more commentary surrounds it. A mountain attracts wind, a candle attracts insects, a rising soul attracts discussion. This does not mean you are superior, it means you are positioned. Ibn Arabi's spiritual framework teaches that placement is part of destiny. Allah places certain individuals in environments where they will be seen, observed, and discussed, not as a punishment, but as a responsibility. If your name carries weight, your behavior must carry integrity, because influence without discipline becomes corruption. There is also another layer. Sometimes Allah allows people to speak about you, to remind you that your impact extends beyond what you see. You may think your actions are small, you may think your growth is unnoticed, yet your name travels, your choices are observed, your consistency is discussed. You are affecting people without realizing it. This awareness should not inflate you, it should humble you. Because if your name is being mentioned, your example is being measured. Ibn Arabi emphasizes that the closer a servant draws to sincerity, the more carefully he must guard his inner state. Public perception can become a trap if you begin performing for it. Once you know you are being talked about, there is a temptation to adjust yourself for image instead of truth. That is where many fall. They become consumed with reputation management. They attempt to control every narrative. They begin living for the conversation instead of for Allah. But the spiritually anchored soul understands something deeper. Being talked about is not the goal. Being sincere is the goal. If people speak well of you, remain grounded. If people speak poorly of you, remain steady. Do not let their words define your direction. And here is the final insight of this lesson. If your name is circulating, Allah is teaching you how to carry weight without collapsing under it. Some people beg for recognition, but crumble under scrutiny. Some ask for visibility but cannot handle criticism. If Allah has allowed your name to carry influence, He is also training you to handle the pressure that comes with it. Pressure reveals structure. If your foundation is ego, pressure will crack you. If your foundation is sincerity, pressure will refine you. So do not panic when you discover your name was mentioned. Do not shrink yourself to avoid attention. Do not distort yourself to gain approval. Stand firm. Because the real question is not why they are talking. The real question is whether you are strong enough internally to remain unchanged by it. 7. Allah is the ultimate defender of your honor. There is a point in every spiritual journey where you must decide who truly protects your name. Most people live in constant defense. They correct every rumor. They respond to every accusation. They monitor every conversation. They attempt to control how they are perceived. Their peace rises and falls with public opinion. But according to the deep spiritual understanding of Ibn Arabi, this attachment to reputation is a subtle form of reliance on creation. And reliance on creation is always unstable. You can defend yourself 1,000 times and still be misunderstood. You can clarify your intentions and still be judged. You can explain your story and still be misrepresented. Why? Because control over hearts does not belong to you. It belongs to Allah. Ibn Arabi emphasizes that true tawakkul is not only trusting Allah for provision or safety, it is trusting Him with your image, trusting Him with your honor, trusting Him with how your story unfolds in the minds of others. This is difficult because your ego wants immediate restoration. It wants your name cleared now. It wants validation now. It wants acknowledgement now. But spiritual maturity requires patience with divine timing. If Allah chooses to raise your name, no human effort can suppress it. If He allows temporary misunderstanding, no human explanation can completely erase it until He wills. There is a powerful shift that happens when you internalize this. You stop fighting battles that were never yours to begin with. Your duty is sincerity. Allah's duty is justice. You are responsible for your intention and action. Allah is responsible for your outcome. When someone speaks about you unfairly and you entrust the matter to Allah, you are not being passive. You are demonstrating confidence in divine justice. Ibn Arabi teaches that Allah's names manifest through events. When you are wronged, the name Al-Adl, the just, is present. When your reputation is threatened, the name Al-Hafiz, the protector, is present. When you are patient, the name Sabr, the patient, is present within your experience. You are not alone in the situation. You are inside a divine interaction. And here is the deeper reality. Sometimes Allah allows your honor to be questioned so He can detach you from dependence on it. Reputation can become an idol. If your peace depends entirely on how others see you, then their perception has power over you. But when your peace depends on how Allah sees you, their perception becomes secondary. This does not mean you ignore wrongdoing. It does not mean you accept injustice silently in every circumstance. But it means your heart does not collapse when human judgment shifts. You begin to understand that honor is not sustained by arguments. It is sustained by integrity over time. False narratives fade. Sincere character remains. Ibn Arabi reminds us that what is written in the unseen is more real than what is spoken in gatherings. You may not be able to control what is said about you in rooms you never entered, but you can control the consistency of your actions in the sight of Allah. And that consistency is what ultimately shapes your true reputation. There is also comfort in knowing that no injustice disappears. Every distorted word will be accounted for. Every humiliation will be balanced. Every slander will be weighed. You do not need to carry the burden of revenge. Divine justice does not forget. When you surrender your honor to Allah, something inside you becomes lighter. You no longer chase every correction. You no longer live in defensive posture. You walk forward with calm certainty that the one who heard everything is also the one who governs everything. This is freedom. Freedom from the need to explain yourself endlessly. Freedom from being enslaved to perception. Freedom from reacting to every whisper. Because once you truly believe that Allah is the ultimate defender of your honor, you stop trying to be your own savior. You focus on purifying your heart. You focus on strengthening your sincerity. You focus on pleasing the one whose judgment is final. And when you live this way, something powerful happens. Even if people continue to talk, you remain steady. Even if misunderstandings persist, you remain grounded. Even if your name travels through uncertain narratives, your soul remains anchored. Because your honor is no longer in their hands. It never was. So the next time you hear that your name was mentioned in your absence, do not rush to anger. Do not rush to defend. Do not let your heart collapse under temporary words. Remember this, they may have spoken in secret, but nothing is secret from Allah. Every whisper was heard. Every intention was recorded. Every distortion was witnessed. And the one who heard it is the one who judges with perfect justice. If they were truthful, Allah will reward them. If they were unjust, Allah will handle it. Your responsibility was never to control every narrative. Your responsibility is to remain sincere. Let people talk. Let tongues move. Let opinions shift. What is written for you cannot be erased by conversation. And what Allah protects cannot be destroyed by rumor. Walk forward with dignity. Guard your heart. Strengthen your reliance. Because in the end it is not their voice that defines you. It is your standing before Allah. They talked, but Allah heard everything, and that is enough.